One of the things I had the biggest trouble with a couple years ago when I started Marquetry was sourcing veneer. I use 16th inch thick veneers, which are a little harder to get. Commercial thickness veneers are about 1/42nd of an inch, and you can use those, but 16th inch thick veneers are a lot easier to use. The problem is that they're not really all that available in many places, and when they are, it's only a couple of species, so your color palette is limited when you do marquetry. There is good news though, in that most marquetry pieces, like this one, don't have many pieces that are all that big. Because of that, when you need to resaw veneer, you don't need to start with anything all that big either. That means that even if you have not a very good bandsaw or no bandsaw at all, there are things that you can do to get your own veneer. I'm up here in my lumber loft where I keep one of my favorite sources for veneer right here in this bin, and that is turning blanks. You can pick up turning blanks at like Woodcraft, Rockler. I get mine from Exotic Lumber in Annapolis, and they have an online store. You can look at online retailers as well. These are fantastic if you're looking to get veneer for marquetry. The first reason is it's a great way to buy a bunch of different species without having to buy too much of any single one. You can also buy a bunch of species that are typically too expensive to buy in larger quantities. This is a piece of beautiful bird's eye maple that only cost me $8, and there's a lot of veneer in here for marquetry. Now, when I go looking for turning blanks, I'm mainly looking for ones that are not rift sawn. Rift sawn material has the benefit of having straight grain on all four faces. That's really good for things like table legs. It's not great if you're trying to get a lot of variety in veneer. So if you get a piece of wood that is flat sawn or quarter sawn in a turning blank, it doesn't matter because it's a square, you can get very different looking veneers just by rotating that blank. The other reason I like using turning blanks for marquetry is it's really easy to resaw a veneer off this. The hardest part about resawing your own veneer is keeping it a consistent thickness over the entire width of your stock. If your stock is not that wide, it's pretty easy to get a consistent thickness veneer, as long as your fence is exactly 90 degrees. I'll set my fence at the bandsaw to exactly 1/16 of an inch away from that blade using something that's exactly a 1/16 of an inch, like a veneer I cut before. Slide that in between and lock the fence down. Now you could do this at the table saw as well. You'll just want to make sure that you're not trapping the veneer between the blade and the fence, but on the other side of the blade. You might need a thin rip jig or something like that to do that. This is really hard to do on this bandsaw, by the way, because it just doesn't have a very good micro adjust. But I was reading the most recent Popular Woodworking, which, by the way, features work from some really talented people. And my buddy Logan has an article in there about this company called Harvey that makes these bandsaws that have all these great features that maybe they could send me one and maybe I could, show off those features to people. Now, even if you have a very bad bandsaw or a very bad table saw, as long as you can lock down that fence and keep it at 90 degrees over the span of the turning blank, you can get veneers that are ready to use for marquetry. You don't have to worry about the bandsaw marks or the saw marks from the table saw. You can just sand those off when you're done the panel. Now, you might be thinking, those are thin strips. This thing is on a larger panel. How am I supposed to get a larger panel if I only have thin strips? The answer is a hand plane and 2 pieces of plywood. This is a Bastogne walnut turning blank from Exotic Lumber. This is the quarter sawn face. What I did with this is resawed off a veneer, then planed this face to make it nice and fresh, and resawed off another veneer. Now, since I used the quarter sawn face, if I want to join these 2 pieces of veneer together, I can do a pretty good job of hiding that join because the grain is so straight. So I can use these 2 pieces of veneer to create a larger panel, which I can then use to insert smaller pieces of veneer in there. So with a turning blank, I can make a larger field for my marquetry panel. Now, if you take these 2 pieces of veneer and at the join, they're not lining up nicely, what you can do is take 2 pieces of plywood, nail them together so there's a nice little ledge, take any hand plane and use it like a little hand jointer. And you'll be able to joint that edge fairly quickly on both pieces of veneer until that joint is nice and gapless. Now you can do this with as many sheets as you want, with as many successive cuts off this. It's all up to you. It's pretty cool. This is something I've been doing for years, and it's allowed me to get away with a lot in my marquetry. I know I have really nice tools now, but I didn't always have that. I used to have an even worse bandsaw and even worse everything, and I somehow made it work. Now, when you're done making these, gluing them together is fairly simple. You'll just want to spread a piece of tape along the back to keep it together, and then you can open up that joint like a book and just spread a bead of glue down there, close it, and then tape across the joint and let it dry, and it's good to go for marquetry or any veneer work. I'm gonna use this for like a panel on the top of a box, probably without any marquetry at all. Really fun way to get into veneer work, really fun way to try out new species that you may not have tried before without breaking the bank. Pretty cool stuff, and you don't need any additional tools than what you already have in your shop, most likely.